Cool, thank you. Hillary just sent a message that the link for the finance meeting is not live on the website. It looks like it must be working for some people because I see people dialed in. Diane, are you able to make me a host? Or Kelly? A co-host?
YouTube is live now.
I can have Kelly or Don do that. Sarah, I don't have the.
Okay, yeah, Don, would you mind?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Don, would you mind making me the co-host?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Oh, please don't call me Matt. Oh gosh.
It's more fun that way.
He can't help it, Sarah. It's his training. He can't help it. At least he didn't call you Ms. Sarah.
Yeah, right.
It's my Southern training.
Exactly.
You're the co-host.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, we'll just wait for Sandy to dial in on audio, and then we can get started. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Well, in theory, I can't read it.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Is that better?
No.
No, okay.
Not really.
Just bear with me. Sorry, this is my first time sharing my screen with this.
I think that's it, Sarah. You just gotta get closer to it.
There you go.
Okay, cool. Okay. Sandy, are you with us now?
You're on mute. On.
Hey, Sandy, can I just confirm that you can hear us?
I'm here.
Awesome. Thanks. Cool. I think we can go ahead and get started then and call to order the June 4th School Board Finance Committee meeting. So we just wanted to use this meeting as a working session for April, Alicia, and I to go through and sort of figure out what our recommendations are going to be to hit the town council goal that they set at first reading. So we all recognize that there are a number of things sort of outstanding, not the least of which the fact that town council has put in place a workshop next Tuesday to actually come up with what their final, I guess, goal is going to be for us. But regardless of kind of what happens at that meeting, we still felt it was important to sort of take action or a recommendation on all the information that the Leadership Council has given us. So we're going to use this opportunity just as a working session to go through that. And obviously, if we have any questions, Kate, Diane, Sandy will direct them to you guys. And if we need to, we can bring anybody else in. But I'll sort of, let you know if it comes to that. Otherwise, I think we'll just use this as an opportunity for us to get aligned. Cool. And just for anyone who's listening, I just want to start the top of the meeting off with just some housekeeping items. So we do take public comment at the end of the meeting. So I'll make sure that we leave adequate time for that. If you have a question, if you just raise the little green hand will call on you in order. Alternatively, if you'd like to send us an email at publiccomment@scarboroughschools.org, we can read it into the public record at that point as well. All right, so let's get started. So what we're looking at right now, for anyone who wants to follow along, this document is available as part of our supplemental material for the finance committee meeting on our website. The only thing that they won't have is sort of this additional box right here. So I think before we get started, I want to make sure we're all sort of working towards the same goals and the same numbers. So Kate, this is where we may need some of your help just to confirm that the numbers we have we're all reading this correctly. So April actually put this together, and April, I can let you kind of explain this if you want. I don't want to take the credit for it because you did it.
It's not anything super fancy, Kate. All I did was take each of the tiers and put them into one table so that we could see as we move through the various tiers that you guys set up where we were in relation to how much had been reduced and how close we were to meeting town council's our first reading goal. I did have a question in tier 1. Sarah, do you want me to ask this now or do you want to wait?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Okay, so in tier 1, Kate, Sarah, do you want to move the screen to the line where it says that we have a offset cost of $50,350? Could you explain what that number is?
I'm actually gonna switch out here and look at it on my screen because I can't really see it very well there.
Okay.
So you said tier 1.
Yep, it's the last line in tier 1 before you get to the CIP portion. It's labeled middle school athletics, supplies, and equipment.
Oh yeah, the 5350. Yeah, that's not actually, that's my fault. That's a total that was thrown in there for me to get the value of the high school reductions, and it doesn't belong in that column at all.
Okay, perfect.
Cool.
So there is
delete that then.
There's no carry down to the bottom of tier 1.
That's what I noticed. So
Right.
we couldn't quite make my table, so Sarah.
Oh, sorry, I sort of lost you there.
Lost you for a second, April.
So we could just take that 5350 out, and it doesn't have any relationship to the bottom totals. What it is a sum of the athletics and activities costs that you had asked to restore, so that I could just quantify that. So that's my bad.
Okay.
I left the sum in there.
No worries. I think that was just throwing us off, but that makes sense. So April, we lost you for a little bit, but it looks like you're back now.
Yeah, I'm texting my family to get off the network.
Stop hogging the waves, guys.
So Kate, then the tier 1 operational number we have is 261,539, and that should be in a sum of all these numbers, and it looks like it is, so that's right. That's the extent of my Excel skill right there. Just highlight a bunch of stuff and look at the sum.
So it's the sum of the reductions in each of the funds, right? Is that what we're getting at?
Yep, except for CIP. So April put that as separate.
Right.
Cool. So I think that makes sense. So I think as a starting point, just to kind of talk through this, without even getting to the additional items for consideration, we've technically already hit the town council goal just by obviously getting to tier 4 of what's in the latest proposal. So I did just want to call that out. And then I think the work that we have to do today is to see if there are things that are in tiers 1 through 4 that we want to take out of the reduction. And if so, what are we going to add back in order to keep and maintain that goal? Cool. So April and Alicia, are you guys clear on that? And you guys are in agreement with these numbers?
Yes. And so my thought was, and it sounds like your thinking is the same, that it might make sense for us to go from the bottom up. So if we started at tier 4, we could put things back in and make reductions at that point, and we would know where we were at. Is that the way you're thinking?
We can do it that way. The other thought I had was, I guess, just to make sure and go through everything that's in red that was updated, and just make sure that we're comfortable with that, kind of black it out to make it, I guess, official, and then go through at the very bottom. Kate added in sort of new reductions, and then I guess we could talk through there, but it might make sense to just start here instead and save ourselves some time. So I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Right. And the other piece I would throw in as a resource is that if we're going through tiers 1 through 4, and there's something that I've zeroed out because it was related to classroom instruction or it was related to athletics, I still have the, other versions of the tiers. So if it's something where there's a question of a trade-off, we can go back and look at what those values were in the beginning.
Okay, I'm not sure I followed that, Kate. Say that again. Sorry.
All right, let me say it without so many words. So the original document with including reductions to athletics and activities programs with reductions to classroom teachers is still available on my screen. And so if there is a place where you folks would like to go back and reflect on what we've taken out of this document and reconsider any of that, then I have the dollar values at hand here.
Okay, thank you.
Just so everybody knows, I'm having some problems with my audio, I think. So I'm gonna dial in on my phone. So if you lose me for a second, I'm just transitioning from computer audio to phone audio.
Okay, thank you. All right, cool. So Alicia, I guess if we start from the bottom and figure out if there are other areas in here that we want to maintain as a cut. So right now, again, if we kind of go over to the top, everything that we're looking at that's at the bottom takes us well below the ask. So I think the question is, are there things in that tier 4 under consideration that we feel strongly should be taken out in place of something that's already in there?
Taken out or reinvested?
Take everything that's in this section right now is currently, I guess, technically still in. So it's up to us to decide whether or not we want to take that out of the budget in place of something else.
Right, and the other reason why you might consider that extra $400,000 as part of your thinking is around the COVID costs and where do those fit into your, your work with the finance committee, with the town council rather.
Yeah, so actually, Kate, thanks for bringing that up. And sorry, I should have mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting. So the proposal, I think, and I'll get confirmation from April and Alicia sort of publicly on this, but it's our position that we should present town council with what has met the goal, and then follow that up with, however, given the circumstances, we need to add this amount back in order to make sure that we're providing our students with a safe learning environment come the fall. And so although the COVID costs would exist in our operating budget, we want to present them as sort of separate entities. Alicia and April, can you just confirm that you
That's what I'd like to do to meet their first reading goal, but then have an additional $430,000 ask based on new circumstances.
Yep, I am also in agreement with that.
I think that that little section is actually now down at the very bottom of this document. Is it still there, Sarah? On the one I sent you?
Yep,
Yeah,
still
there you
there.
go. And there was some conversation about whether the transportation was actually part of that or not. It was something that we had offered to reduce as a leadership team, the school leaders. And so that was, we threw that in there as a talking point as well. But I think, and Diane can jump in on this question, I think that Sarah is still confident that we can at least get started without that funding for those positions.
Yeah, I might suggest that we just leave that be for now, just so we can work through the rest of it, and then we can circle back to that at the end, figure out how we want to position that.
So I think that the way I understand that the reason why we called this meeting today was because Sarah and I need to go through this and discuss what we agree on so that we can make a recommendation for the board, because we need to sort of put this work in. So the first thing that we need to establish is what is the goal, right?
Which we've established.
Well, did April say she agrees with that? I couldn't follow.
Oh, sorry, I thought I saw a head shake.
The goal being to meet town council's first reading expectation that we reduce our budget by $2.1 million.
Minus the additional COVID costs and not including those yet. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Good. So we're over the first hurdle.
Okay. So that being the case, do you guys feel strongly that we should remove either the instructional coach position in lieu of anything else that's currently being reduced?
No.
Can I ask a question, Alicia? Since you wanted to work from the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around working from the bottom.
Okay.
So if we work from the bottom, then we're saying all of these things that are nearest to the goal, we're taking those in. I feel like we're taking those into consideration first.
My thought was just, okay, we've got the leadership's proposal. They've met the goal. Now we could say, these are the things we want to add back in. These are the things we want to take out. And we know that we've met the goal from that baseline. And I'm happy to, to do it otherwise, but that was my thought. We at least we know that.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just going to maybe go back to my original. It might make sense for us to just start from the top and make sure that we agree with everything that's in here, and where there are things that we don't agree with, we kind of put those in a parking lot to be considered as, to be taken out and replaced by something that's in the for consideration file.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. So items in motion. Yep. Items in motion. Is there any sort of disagreement here? Are we happy with that?
Nope.
Yes.
Those are just great. Those
are
good news.
Yep. I'm just going to sort of highlight these in black just to identify that we've agreed on that. Let's see. So this is the additional line that I think Brianna Kelman mentioned, that this just reduces the foreign language curriculum. So it is a reduction in what we'll provide, but I think what she has communicated is it's what they need for this year. And I think instead of eliminating the entire curriculum, it sounds like there's agreement that we can just keep it in as is at the reduced rate.
Except we got an email today that they need an additional $500 something.
Okay.
I didn't see that one.
In addition to what's in here.
Yeah, this is kind of looking at it backwards, because you're looking at the reductions from the original ask. So we need a smaller reduction. Is that what I'm hearing?
Kate, you were copied on that email at 11:30. She's asking for $506 for to support all of the students in levels 1 through 4 and AP. And it was from Leanne.
It's from Leanne.
In response from a teacher. It was initially from a teacher. $10.56 from a teacher.
Yeah, so it looks like the total request should be
$10,166.
But again,
right. But
that's
keep in mind that this is a reduction. Yeah,
Right.
this is a reduction.
Right,
amount,
but that's the
so.
ask.
So
Yeah.
if it's an, sorry, just to cut to the chase, if they need $500 more, and I'm looking at this email, and I'm not seeing the bottom line number. Oh yeah, here it is, 10,166.
Yep.
Let me grab a calculator here.
So I support the $506 if we can just sort of move that down and keep going and
Yeah, so the reduction with that new number would be a reduction of $85.84.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. I can support that. Thanks, Kate. Okay to sort of put that in black?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thinking if you want to just share this back out with me again, Sarah, afterwards, then I can regroup with my stuff. That'd be great.
Yep. Okay. Okay. High school staff development.
Wait, is there a red?
No, but I just want to go through. I mean, we haven't gone through all of these in detail, so you guys happy with that? Leaving that in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the middle school, I don't think there was anything crazy or new here. And same with Wentworth. Are you guys happy with these two?
These
Yeah.
are
I'm not happy with
Actually,
any of it, but
I feel
Well,
like
right.
using happy is, I was just going to say,
Yeah,
using
that's not-
happy is
I don't want to
the
see
right word.
any of our libraries go without books and equipment, but
Can we?
I understand why those are in tier 1.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you
And
might
then
need to
same
take
with,
your screen over just a smidge, Sarah, to see the whole thing, or is it just me that I've got it blown up too high?
I can see it all.
Oh, it's my
I can
fault.
see it, yeah.
let me know.
I mean,
I've got my view wrong.
tiny, but
My bad. Gotcha.
Okay, and then when we come down to athletics, we had the clubs and the clubs restored in tier 1. So that's OKO players, 1-act play, and then academic clubs and travel. So those are restored. Are you guys happy, comfortable with that?
I am happier that those are restored. I can say happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't want to be quoted as being happy to reduce anything.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's tier 1 operational. And then when we come down to CIP, the things that were added to be deferred are these 4 items right here.
I have a question for Kate, maybe. If we reduce, it's my understanding that we're reducing the K2 new classroom setup by 1 because later on in the proposal, we're not hiring one of the K2 teachers that we had originally budgeted for. If we found a way to fund that other K2 teacher, it would also come with added expense of needing to furnish that classroom, or no?
That's a really good question. It would depend on how that teacher was deployed in our new world, whether it be like a sharing situation. Really, the funding that's in CIP for new classrooms is mostly for the modular classrooms.
Okay.
And those are going to be there regardless, and they're going to need to be outfitted regardless. But it's a good point. I think we could probably squeak it depending on how much we reduce in other places. If we keep the funding for district-wide furnishing that's in capital, that's bonded funds, we should be able to make it work.
Okay, thank you.
That was a good question. Okay, so
are you guys happy with or comfortable with the changes or the additions to CIP?
I can go along with that right now. I don't know what word to use.
Yep, I can include these in our proposal.
Okay. I guess the only thing, and makes me a little, I just have a question on is the fireproofing of the stage curtains, and obviously that's a security or a safety issue, but we don't obviously know what it's going to look like in the fall, or if we're even going to be able to have shows in the auditorium. I guess I just would like some comfort from Sandy or Diane on where the fireproofing fits in terms of its cycle, like how often that happens and what the concern is on that.
I believe Todd might be available to speak to that. I know he was going to try to come in on the meeting. And
just if we could, sorry, just so we can kind of go through our not that I don't want to hear Todd speak, because I always do, but I just want to make sure we get through what we need to. So it's not a quick answer, then maybe we'll just leave it and come back to it at the end.
Right. So I know that it's a 5-year cycle, and that deferring it is probably not recommended, but that's as much as I know.
Why don't you just
maybe
approve everything?
What
and
I'll do is
that?
just kind of leave this as is, and then we can kind of come back to it.
That's fine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then transportation. Cool. So that's tier 1. Any questions or concerns around tier 1? Or can we move to tier 2?
No.
Nope, I'm okay.
Okay. So the additions in tier 2, additional $3,000 in professional development for central office.
No.
Okay. IT board docs. I know that the town, Tom included this in his reduction list as well. I obviously don't think, it sounds like it's something that would be really beneficial to us, but I think we can defer it. Okay. And then the district-wide copier replacement. I mean, who knows, we might be doing all of our stuff online, so I think this feels like a reasonable
add a little, I'm sorry. Just to throw a little detail on that, is we had planned to replace about 1/3 of our current fleet with the oldest machines going, and then try to get into a replacement cycle in the way that we do with a lot of our tech. And we're just proposing to not do that, but just to take the oldest machines that are actually failing and not try to do 1/3. We'll just push the cycle out longer.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, I support this decision for now, knowing that it's going to catch up with us at some point.
Yeah. Okay. So eliminate non-instructional positions. So these are all for the bus drivers. These are all unfilled positions.
That's something that I'd like to consider adding back in.
So that was the one that we thought it might make sense, and Kate kind of alluded to this at the beginning, to add into like the COVID fund. Kate had mentioned to me earlier that, and I don't want to, if I'm stating this incorrectly, Kate, you can correct me, but the director of transportation has said that she thinks that they can manage. And not saying it's going to be easy, but she has said that they can manage. So
I just
personally, I feel like
that would be under normal circumstances if we were able to put all of our students on the buses all at the same time. And it's premature for us to know if we're going to be able to do that or not.
Okay,
Right.
so I understood when Kate shared that with me that she said that they can manage even in sort of a social distancing world because they are unfilled positions and we've struggled to hire anyway.
Well, and there's a difference between struggling to hire and needing more drivers. And, I phrased it as we wouldn't be able to get people to do the work, which isn't the same thing as needing people to do the work. So I should defer to Diane on that, really.
How about we highlight that as sort of another area that we need more information on? I'd like to know what that would do for sort of the social distancing for the kids if we added those 3 positions back in.
And that's the point that I guess I'm trying to make, because if you can have 60 kids on a bus, then that's one thing, right? And so when this proposal was first put forward, it was pre-COVID when that was how we were operating. If we look at, what the rules for summer guidance is, for example, not knowing what fall guidance is, summer guidance is basically saying you can have 18 students per bus. That's really different than 60 students per bus. So, I'm just going to pass that information along so that you can have that awareness, because we are in an unpredictable position now, but it is hard to imagine that we will be able to transport buses with 60 students for the fall.
So is the 60 figure including those 3 additional bus drivers or not, Diane?
No.
Okay. So what would the number be when you add the 3 in, if you added 3 back? Do you know?
Do you mean it would depend on how many students we are able to transport on a bus at a time.
Diane's saying she would need to wait to get our fall guidelines because right now the summer guidelines are to put only 18 students on a bus at the same time. Right. And given the number of drivers we have now, we could not possibly make that accommodation, but we don't know what the fall recommendation is going to be yet.
Well, but the reality may be that we are unable to follow the guidelines fully. So I guess my question is more of what are our numbers and what would the total be number of students on the bus with the 3 additional bus drivers and without the 3 additional bus drivers is what I'm wondering. How much of a benefit do we get for social distancing with that 3 additional?
Because I can go back and work through that with Sarah Redmond. I do want some clarification though, because I heard you say we might not be able to work within the guidelines. Are you suggesting that we would ignore the guidelines? I'm thinking you're not, right?
Well, I'm just thinking if we're going back to school
and
there are things that we can't do, like that the school system is incapable of meeting the ultimate goal. You're going to try to come as close to the goal as you can, right?
We're not going to be allowed to open unless we can meet. If there are things that it depends on if it's a recommendation or if it's a mandate or a guideline.
Right.
So if the guideline or the mandate is 18 students and we're at 21, we're not going to be able to squeak through and say that's close enough.
Okay. So I
think we just need some more information on that too, because maybe 3 isn't enough. So I was just like, maybe we need 4. Like how? So I think we need some more information. If we're not going back to school in the fall, we don't need these bus drivers, presumably, right? So, in my opinion, it feels like a a more appropriate bet for us to take it out of here and then add it back into just the COVID.
Well, Kate
I
has it
agree,
down
Sarah.
under, Kate has it down under the COVID
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yep.
it does
I think
fit
that this
well in that
absolutely
category.
falls into that.
Yeah.
It fits
So
well in that category of unexpected expenses.
I'd like to keep it as something that, just like you had a question about the fireproofing, that's one of my thoughts.
Sure. And I think that's
Open
a good question to ask exactly what the impact of 3 bus drive, what that will do to our numbers. Because we know some of our bus routes are at capacity and some of them are not. So if we distribute those 3 bus drivers, what does that do to the number of kids on buses? That's a great question.
I'm happy to get that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, cool. Moving on to Kate. I'm not sure why these were highlighted. But so this is
all
a
the staff
reduction.
positions are highlighted.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
The
Thank you.
yellow
So
refers
the 17.
The yellow refers to existing employees who've been laid off. So those were in the first tier, or in the second tier rather, from the get-go. So there's nothing different about that. The red indicates the changes that we've made.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you. Alicia and April, do you guys want to make any changes under these?
Nope.
Non-instructional positions?
No.
Okay. And then lead teacher positions, we asked for these to be restored. With the exception of, so this was a new investment proposal, and so that was going to be reduced.
What?
Any changes you guys want to make here?
What was that you're talking about? That's a new
So
investment.
the Wentworth leadership redesign was an investment. It was one of the only, and it's just so crummy because it was one of the only things that Kelly asked for. But by the sounds of it, they decided at Leadership Council that they could continue to be flexible there. So
yeah,
I'm okay with that.
Okay, Alicia?
Yes.
Okay. Lots of restoration in this one.
Yeah, athletics, it was everything back in, and I personally am happy with that.
Me too.
Alicia?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Good. Tier 3. So again, this was a sort of an addition to extracurricular after-school programs, all of which were added back in. Yep.
Yes.
Okay with that? Great.
Looks good.
And then athletics and support staff. So, oops, sorry, April, do you have a comment?
Nope. Other than to just say tier 3 is a lot of restoration, which obviously I appreciate how hard we all, Leadership Council worked to provide us with alternatives. It doesn't make tier 4 any easier, but I'm happy to see those things restored.
Yes. And then the athletic trainer contract. So this was so we have an athletic trainer. This is the contracted one through Maine Medical Partners, I believe it is. So it's just a reduction in those hours.
Right. So the current contract is for $25,000, which is basically a full-time assistant athletic trainer, but not an employee. And so that saves us in benefits and salary as well. And what Mike proposed to do was to reduce the scope of that work and cut it down so that we would still have support for Joe Davis, but we wouldn't have it on a full-time basis.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last meeting.
Yeah.
That's something that I support.
Yep. Okay. And do you guys want to table the admin assistant and come back to it?
Yes, please. I think it's part of the bigger conversation as we get to the bottom. So I'm okay with that.
Agreed. Okay. And then kinder camp and curriculum staff development. Fine there?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And then we asked them to restore the library ed tech.
Oh, can I make a point before we go too far? Sorry.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's important for all of us and for anybody who may be watching. You know, one of the things that I feel like we just need to continuously remind ourselves is that some of these reductions are things that we're just delaying, and those are not going to be costs that we're going to have to reinstate per se. But some of these, you know, not funding kinder camp this year makes sense because we weren't going to be able to necessarily run the program with the CDC guidelines and all of these things. And so that makes sense to me to have that removed. But that's something that, you know, as a community, I think we value, and that's going to be right back in there in FY22. And so that's part of this, like continuously thinking about this as what can we do this year to ease the burden that we're feeling, but that these are not like things we can just go without. And I just keep worrying about what the restoration of these programs is going to end up looking like. And it's not anything that we can do anything about. I just weighs on me, I guess.
Well, and it bears repeating whenever you're having a public conversation that you can defer something, but you can't eliminate it completely forever. And that goes for things like facilities and maintenance and, you know, replacement of equipment, but it also goes for things like curriculum and staffing and programs. So I think it's a really, really important point, and I don't think you can say it too often.
Okay. Thanks, April. Agree with that point. Library ed text, we opted to restore. Comfortable with that? Thumbs up from April?
Yeah. Yep.
Thumbs up from Alicia? Great. All right, tier 4. So class size adjustments. So for K2, this retains 3 or 4 positions. The average class size range was 16 to 20. So it's basically, if I'm reading this correctly, it's it wouldn't be any layoffs. We would just not be backfilling one retiree position, and yeah, because all the other ones are new positions, new investments.
I think that we should look at that. How many of those positions we can fill with our overage.
Right.
So,
I would like to see an asterisk on that one, that if there is any possible way with some wiggle room that we can fund that fourth K2 position, I would love to see that funded.
And had mentioned to Sarah when we were pulling the materials together that we may want to take a look, and I can pull it up, at the enrollment information that we have about what the class sizes actually are right now, so that we can have a good idea of what those projections might look like.
Yep, that's a really good point, Kate.
Make sure that we're not making any uninformed decisions.
Okay. So these were restored, both Wentworth and high school. Okay, so we'll leave this as kind of italicized for now, and we'll kind of come back to it. And so that we had asked for instructional coach or so this is the instructional coach position, so the 2 retiree positions not being backfilled for Wentworth and middle school.
Yeah, again, I don't think any of us take any joy in seeing those unfilled positions remain unfilled. But it certainly feels a little bit better than knowing we are laying someone off.
Agreed.
I agreed. Okay. All right. So that gets us to sort of the new items for consideration. So if we kind of I just want to do like a quick addition here. What are the ones that we have questions on? See what that comes to. Let's see, K2.
When you're counting up the teacher positions, will you count them all, not just the K2?
What do you mean?
What do you mean, Alicia?
Wasn't there a retiree not filled?
I'm just looking at the ones that we're saying, if we want to put this back in, I was just going to add up the areas where we had said, if we want to put those things back in, what does that amount to? And therefore, what do we need to take from here, from this bottom section?
Right. So as
Does that
it
make sense?
stands right now, where we are on the spreadsheet, we've met town council's goal, correct?
Correct. So if you kind of ignore this for a second.
Yeah.
This is where we are.
I gotta move my Zoom.
And we've met town council's goal by $50,000.
In excess of $50,000.
Yeah, over $50,000, yes.
Yeah.
But that's not including the COVID ask, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
And that does include the CIP.
Yes, it does.
That includes CIP, yep. Only the CIP that's in here, though.
Yeah.
So then the question becomes, if there are things that we made notes on that we would like to look into possibly funding, there are 2 pieces. One, I lost my train of thought. If we go down below that proposed line where we are right now, there are a bunch of things in red that we asked for the Leadership Council to prepare some reduction numbers. Those items have not been, we've met town council's goal and all of those things are still in the budget. So at this point,
right.
If we wanted to discuss funding a K2 position, for example, because I have said I want to fund that, we could look at these items below that line and see whether there are things below that line that we would rather not fund in order to fund that K2 position. And so there are a couple of things below that line that I would like to discuss more. And it also bears, mention that we've met town council's first reading goal by $50,000, in excess of $50,000. And so there may be some smaller things that we can fund and still meet the goal.
Exactly. So April, let's just start there, right? The K2 position is about $89,000.
And again, to Kate's point, we absolutely have to look at the enrollment numbers and make sure that that's a position that we, would actually need in order to meet the enrollment at those grade levels. But I also know that right now is going to be really critical to keep class sizes small. And
so I guess the question for me, on the class size point is right now with that position not being backfilled, the average class size range is between 16 and 20. If we added that teacher back in, what would that drop the average class size to?
Right. And it's tricky too, because number one, we operate at 3 different schools. And so it may lower the average class size, but really it only has an impact at one of the buildings, depending on where that position is filled. And so it's really a matter of looking at the Pleasant, we would have to be really specific, and we would have to say this teacher would fill a K2 position and the Pleasant Hill class size for 2nd grade would go from this number to this number, because it's not going to impact the class size at Blue Point.
It is clear to everybody, right, that this is not an existing position today. This is one of the 4 new positions that were being proposed based on enrollment.
Yes.
Projections, right?
Yeah.
And Diane's kind of had her fingers on the projection stuff, so she might be able to pull some data for us here.
Yeah, I have that ready if that's information that you would like to have or to talk about.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
So what we've done is I had built some spreadsheets that would help us to take a look at what class size look like. And so if we look at adding 1 teacher at each of the K2 phases, which is the 3, the 3 new teacher model, that's where we get the 16 to 20. If I look across the schools, and April, to your point, you're spot on in saying it's going to affect 1 grade level at 1 school if we change that. And so if we looked at 8 Corners for next year's 2nd grade, which is slated to have 20 students per class, if I change that to 5 teachers, then they would now have 16 students per class. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to distribute it across all of K2s, right? Because you have 3 small schools. Adding a teacher is an easier thing to do when you have 1 larger school with more teachers and more students. So, the question then becomes, okay, so do we feel good about that? Because 8 Corners their 2nd grade would go from 20 to 16, while, another school still has 18 or 19 students. So I think it presents an equity issue when you start manipulating just 1.
Yeah, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. Okay, thank you very much, Diane, for that information.
And the other thing,
Diane, I guess just to
go ahead.
I just have a further question on that, because while I understand the point, the position was originally put in for a K2, so presumably that's where the need is. And if we were going to restore that 1 position, I would think the need would still be at K2. But are you suggesting that maybe it would make more sense that if we were going to restore that, we should look at potentially Wentworth?
I guess my point is that it's not necessarily easy. And remember, when we put these positions in, we were really looking at projected enrollment. So for example, at 8 Corners, projected enrollment for incoming kindergarten was 91, and yet with our current numbers, it's 80. So our enrollment projections are lower than what we anticipated. Obviously, there have been so many changes in our environment with the pandemic that some of the things that were predicted under the enrollment study may not be coming to fruition at this point in time. And so, that one point, that's an 11 student drop in kindergarten at that 1 school. That's significant, right? And so that does impact, geez, we thought we needed 4 teachers because we were expecting this bigger kindergarten. Right now, it's not trending in the direction that we thought it was going to trend.
Okay. So that being the case,
Yep.
I'm having a hard time justifying putting it back in if our current enrollment numbers don't actually say that we need it.
Yeah,
Is that
I can
fair?
agree with that, Sarah. Yeah.
I mean, I know I completely appreciate that it's difficult and things are likely to will definitely change one way or the other.
It's hard to
but we have
protect
to make a
in our
decision
current-
now with the information. Yeah. Yeah.
What I
Alicia, what are your
what I
thoughts?
don't want to hear is that the enrollment numbers are going to be 19 and 20 in every kindergarten class, or in excess of 18 or 19, and that position would really create a lot of relief for the incoming kindergarten. But if our enrollment numbers aren't forecasting a need for an additional kindergarten teacher, then that answers that question for me.
So I just want to make sure again that we're giving you as much information, because remember, as we talked about, there's a lot of fluctuation in that range from 16 to 20 because of the makeup within every school and every grade. So when I look at kindergarten right now, with where we're trending, like at 8 Corners, the average class size in kindergarten is 16. At Blue Point, the average class size is 17. And at Pleasant Hill, the average class size is 18. But there's no way to, so if I take the class that has 18 and I throw a 5th teacher there, now you have a class size of 14, right?
Right.
So those are the really difficult pieces.
Yep.
Dan, can I just confirm one more piece? Is the 81 registrations that you gave, is that, so we usually have a lot of registrations that happen between like now and let's say when school starts. What are our trends now compared to where they were last year? And are we, I guess I'm just trying to understand, like if we use, is the number that we have now accurate, consistent to how we forecasted in years past, or do you expect there to be a surge between now and when school starts?
I honestly think that would be, that's difficult to predict, right?
Can I ask you this, Diane? How many more enrollments would you need to want to continue to keep that position or that additional request?
I mean, I think it depends on where you as a board sit in terms of class size.
Well, you ultimately made that request, right, because of the trends. And so what would the trend have to be in order for you to think that that's still something that we need?
Well, for example, the projected enrollment, like if I think about 8 Corners in general and the projection study, it really focused on growth in 2 areas in actually across all of 8 Corners in general. And so, this year, for example, we have 242 students at 8 Corners. Next year, with our real enrollment numbers with incoming K, we're at 251. But that enrollment study said that we would have 290. And so we're trending really down for 8 Corners in comparison to the enrollment study that we did.
Okay, that's helpful.
So that was, those numbers were what we had taken into account when asking for those additional positions.
Okay.
Because again,
Diane, are you, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, just one more thing. Just keep in mind that when we build a budget, we want to build it with, if we need that position, there's money for it. It's not us saying we absolutely think we're going to need it. As a school department, our challenge is we never want to get to August and say, oh my goodness, we need another teacher, because we don't have fluid cash flow here, right? And so it would be difficult to find the money for an entire teaching position in the 11th hour.
Right. So you're just, taking the real-time data and adjusting as it goes. Okay.
Correct.
Diane, or Sandy, are you guys at all worried about those low numbers not being reflective of how many kindergartners we're actually going to have coming in, that people during the pandemic haven't registered their kid for kindergarten, but that their intent is to send them?
I would say any year, typically you always pick up students in the summer. It's hard to predict if we'll have additional students because of what we've gone through. But I would say my hunch tells me we're in the ballpark, and having that extra position is sort of like an opportunity. So if indeed we pick up additional students in the summer, it would certainly offset the numbers. And I got to tell you, just being at that level in my career, K2 is probably the most important time that you can try to have low numbers. And so if you have a year where you only have 16 students, that teacher and those students are still very busy with the number of students that they have. Keep in mind, as you know, that sometimes it's not necessarily the numbers, but some of the students that come into that classroom could be high needs, and it requires an additional assistance from the classroom teacher. So I think the payoff, personally, the more we can do at that level.
You're cutting out, Sandy.
I think we lost you, Sandy.
Here, see if you can pick up on mine.
All right.
Yep, we have you now.
Okay, so I think from my perspective, the numbers are good, and I would keep that position in the budget, in that we always have students that register over the summer, and it perhaps, given what we've gone through with the virus, there could be 2 or 3 additional students that did not get registered. It's hard to gauge that because we haven't gone through this before. At the end of the game, even if the numbers are somewhat low, it's a benefit to those kindergarten grade 2 classroom teachers to start off with lower numbers. Research really shows at the lower level, the better class sizes you have, as you know, the more needs you can meet of all students. So, and I guess you have to weigh that with the budget restraints that you're faced with. My vote is to keep it in so that we can have some space, extra opportunities over the summer if more kids are registered.
Keep the 3 positions or add the 4?
Well, I was saying the 4, but
Okay.
yeah.
Can we, I think we'll have a couple of weeks, right, between, well, do you guys anticipate getting any additional registrations over the next week or 2? Or if there are going to be more registrations, will they come right before school starts?
Can't necessarily anticipate. We're in this unprecedented time.
Yeah. I mean, all we can do is monitor this weekly.
Yeah, and Diane, I vaguely heard you in the background. I appreciate that, but I guess I'm just thinking back to last year, and it seemed like, and maybe this is something we can look into and circle back on. I believe like 8 Corners had something like to the magnitude of almost like 20 students register like right up before school. And so that's the situation we want to avoid, right? I think if it's a couple of students that that haven't registered yet, then that's more manageable than 20. So if we just using trends from past years to predict this, that would be helpful.
Well, for me, the fact that we're in the middle of the pandemic, that we know 8 Corners has had challenges with high incoming students that require additional attention for whatever reason, and the fact that the enrollment study was predicting more, and there's the possibility that enrollment was interfered with because of the pandemic, I favor keeping it in. Or yeah, investing in that 4th position.
My only thought was that we keep it out, and then if things change over the next couple of weeks, we could add it back in. But I'm also fine to leave it back in. We just have to find something to replace it with. So if we think that that's important, then I'm fine with that. Yeah.
We also do have kindergarten registration night or parent night coming up on Monday evening. So it is possible that, you know, that in of itself might stimulate more discussion in the community and might help us with more real numbers.
Yeah,
Sure.
I agree, Diane.
Great. So April and Alicia, do you want to restore it for now? And if we get more information that enrollment numbers continue to stay as is, we could potentially look at taking it back out?
Yes. That would be my preference.
April? Yeah.
Yep, mine too.
Done. Okay, so that was 88,000 that we would then need to, well, about 30,000. Let's see if my formula
30,
works.
yeah.
Yeah, so about $38,000 that we need to find. So of the items below, or things that may not be included on here, that are there anything that let's start with this. Is there anything that isn't on here that you guys want to discuss as something that we think should be reduced?
Anything that's not on here?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Okay, so we had talked a lot about the assistant or the admin assistant position in the athletics department. That's not currently scheduled to be reduced or changed at all. There is a reduction, if you remember, we said we'd come back to it. Let's see, where is it?
Oh, you're absolutely right, Sarah. I was looking at reduced department administrative support staff, but that's the .2 secretary position. That's not the same as the other admin position.
So if everything stays as is right now, the athletics department would, I guess there's 2 admin assistant. I think we referred to them as an admin assistant and a secretary. So just for the sake of this, maybe we can just separate them out.
I think that they're both on this document, though, Sarah, referred to as admin assistants.
But this role specifically, yeah, so this role specifically is the secretarial position. Am I saying that right?
But they both have the same job title, admin assistant.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a reduction in one of those roles. That's the only change right now.
It might be helpful to distinguish between them, as one of them is the part-time assistant, like an office assistant, and then the other is.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Kate. And that's this position that we're talking about. So I guess, I mean, I'll happily start the conversation. I think the thing that is a little bit, that sticks out to me for the athletics admin assistant position is the amount of overtime and how disproportionate it is to the overtime of other positions that other staff receive, by the magnitude of, 18% or something. It was about 20% of the overall overtime budget was for one individual. That to me seems like an area that we can restructure potentially, whether it's changing the hours or changing the role itself to not be hourly. I know that these aren't easy things to do. I'm just kind of brainstorming ideas because it just seems from a practical perspective odd to have such a significant amount of someone's salary be attributed to overtime when we know, and it's predictable, that it will be, those hours will be required as part of that role year after year.
So I support increasing the part-time admin assistant, increasing the hours for that because the rate of pay is so much lower and we get more bang for our buck, and eliminating the full-time position.
I would also be in favor of eliminating the full-time position. Unfortunately, we've made so many hard decisions and tried to minimize the impact to the students and the programs, and we are going to have some pretty significant unplanned needs. I mean, we know that that's coming, and everybody in our organization adds value, but what we really need to figure out is, you know, are there positions that we can restructure the department, or, you know, like Alicia said, is increasing the amount that the part-time employee works, would that help to reduce the workload that occurs in that department, but at the same time, you know, still enabling us to get the work done? Or could we remove the full-time position, but then, you know, include some kind of stipend for someone who's currently working within the organization? Like there's got to be
that's a good idea.
Some way to get some savings from that.
Well,
and also not overburden the department. You know, I hear the need. I'm certainly not trying to make it sound like I don't think that position, you know, carries a lot of work along with it. It clearly does. There's a lot of overtime associated with it, but we talked about, you know, are there creative ways? Again, this is not a long-term solution, and we know that this is going to be a struggle. But I just feel like that position and the amount of money associated with it and the amount of tasks that are associated with it, like there just seems to me like there's a solution there to redistribute some of that work and to make it more efficient.
Can I just throw a suggestion? You know, I've been talking to Mike quite a bit about this, the AD director, and he's very concerned about the activities in sports and how this might not be doable without the support. I know what you're trying to do, and maybe there's a way to find that perfect place to still do the sports and try to reshuffle some of the costs here. But I'm wondering if we could pull Mike in to just talk a little bit about the implications of that, unless you feel that you have
I just, you know, Sandy, I appreciate that, but we have listened to presentation of evidence from all departments and heard from the teachers and the communities and all of the department heads. And I just think that we are at the point where we need to make some decisions. I understand the implications, and you know, from my perspective, none of this is fun. But that's a decision that I support. I support raising the support staff position, eliminating the full time position. I like, Sarah, your idea of, April, your idea of looking at a stipend like they do at the middle school. And maybe we could get additional support that way as well. And again, it's about what's our what's going to give us the most bang for our buck. I mean, and I think that that would be another way to really have a consideration of support at this time when we got to make these choices.
Would you mind?
April and Alicia, can I?
I don't understand the proposal, and I'm sorry, I just didn't follow. Are you talking about taking?
I don't think.
I don't get it. Sorry.
Sorry, Kate. I don't know that where there's necessarily agreement. I think we're just still having a discussion about it. And so I guess my question, April and Alicia, would you guys feel comfortable if we retain that position but remove the overtime? Or is that not sufficient in your eyes?
No, I think that we can restructure that department to remove some of the overhead by increasing the part-time. And I love the idea of the stipend.
So if we increase that position, the part-time position, to full-time, my fast math is going to be bad, but Kate, what would that amount to with that admin assistant position?
And that's assuming she's available, or that I don't know if it sounds like that's a filled position. I mean, but even if we go, 0.6, 0.8, whatever.
I would just like to see some significant savings come from a reduction in the overhead and the administration in that particular department. And and one of the things that's not reflected in the proposal that we have here is, a significant savings. Yeah.
So thanks, Sandy. And this is incredibly uncomfortable, right? Because we're talking about an individual. But we also have a responsibility to have these conversations in public, because we started them in public and people have provided us feedback on that position in particular. And so I think it's our duty to have these conversations in public, as awkward and uncomfortable as they may be. I think what I would ask, and April and Alicia, you can sort of add to this or challenge this, is it seems like we're all the three of us are at least all in agreement that there are changes that need to be made. Maybe what those changes are, we're not necessarily in agreement on. But Sandy, my action for you, or I guess request for you, would be to go back and work with Mike and figure out what are the reductions that we can make, because I think we're all looking at this and saying that's too much for right now. And is there a way that we can restructure it by, like Alicia's suggestion, raising the admin assistant, the part-time to full-time, creating a stipend position, creative ideas like that?
I think I would
Alicia and April, do you agree with that? Oh, Alicia, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yes.
I just want to make sure Alicia and April are comfortable with that.
I mean,
because what I heard you say, Alicia, is you just want to eliminate that position entirely. So if that's the ask, that's a little bit different than I think what I'm asking.
I think that I agree with April that the administrative costs are high, and I agree that it seems like we could restructure it so that the part-time position is a little bit higher, in full-time if that's something that person is interested in, because it's paid at a lower rate of pay, and include a stipend to a teacher, and reduce some of the workload, and significantly reduce the cost. And I think that, that's my position.
Okay, so Sandy, is that something that you can look into, the feasibility of that and what that cost would be?
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is give us the money and kind of restructure this to some extent?
What I'm saying is, I think that there are two administrative assistant positions in that department. One is part-time, one is full-time. The full-time position is a $90,000 position. The part-time position is what, 11? I don't even know. So I think we could increase the part-time positions hours, the amount of hours the part-time person works a week at a much, with a cost much less to the district. And so I think that my proposal is to increase the part-time position and consider a stipend as we do at the middle school.
I just want to throw out there that the position that's part-time right now, it's about $16,000. And I think that part of the issue is that being part-time, it doesn't have full benefits. So if you increase that position to full-time, it's going to be at a higher cost. It's not just the hourly rate, it's the benefit piece as well.
Thanks, Kate.
Sure. Just so we know that there's going to be some kind of offset. Also, if you eliminate either position, there's going to be unemployment costs involved.
Okay. April, anything else to add?
No, just that I know we all probably have a different definition of what significant savings looks like. And for me, in this case, looking at the administrative costs in that department, you know, significant savings is enough to fund an instructional coach. And so for me, this is about making really hard choices, and we have some, you know, some positions that are going unfilled in the upper tiers that could really benefit from some savings in administrative costs.
Okay. I mean, I guess if we're being realistic, if we're talking about swapping this for instructional coach, we're basically wiping out that part of both those roles.
No, and I don't mean one for one. I just mean it could be put that a significant savings would be $60,000, you know, to me. So I don't want, so that's why I guess I was saying, like, the word significant means something different to everybody. And so significant savings to me in this case is not $20,000. It's more than that. And it would be, you know, enough to be a substantial amount that where we could not one for one fund another position, but, you know, get a heck of a lot closer.
I think the other thing that we would want to do is to look at the different skill set that would be important as well. So there's a lot of different parts to this, and I don't want to in any way stall this or take more time with you, but I appreciate the position you're in. I just struggle with if there's a better way to do this, and I will have to go back with my team and just rethink, is there something different that we could do to get to where you want us to be? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, Sandy, what I would suggest maybe is, you know, you have the specific suggestion that we're making, but in addition to that, if, you know, there are other creative ideas that can kind of get us to the same spot financially that you think would provide better support, then I'm sure April and Alicia and I would be open to hearing those.
And as you know, we'll do the best we can. The ramifications of our decision, I just want to make sure that we don't go down the wrong path. And I know you can appreciate that. And I'm not sure there's a simple solution to this, but again, we'll take a look at it.
Thanks, Sandy.
Okay. Great. So April and Alicia, first of all, I should say, I realized we only scheduled this meeting from 1 to 2, which was a gross underestimation on my part. So apologies for that. Is everyone okay to continue until 3 o'clock? If we need to.
I can.
Okay. Great. So then the other, I guess, is there anything else that's not listed in here that you guys want to discuss as potentially reducing?
No, nothing that's not in there. I am worried about the 2 curriculum the math and focus in the world language.
So these are currently not in the reductions.
Right.
Right. Those will only need to be reduced if we get a worst case scenario number. But that being said, you know, math and focus upgrade, K-8 will have no access to online materials. The implications of what exactly that means could have some pretty serious consequences if we do have to do any form of remote learning. And so obviously, you know, keeping and maintaining our online materials is probably of high priority. But I don't know that I know enough to say that, because even with 2 kids at 2 different schools, in terms of the math curriculum, I don't know how much they use those online components to math and focus, because the primary online component that we used during distance learning was iReady. And so I don't know what that reduction necessarily, what the implications of that reduction would mean if we had to do distance learning. And I would be curious about that.
Well, I mean, I think we've heard some mixed stories, right, from parents and from teachers and from Monique's, all of their input. Everybody has different perceptions about this. It worries me just because of the potential online component. So I just want to put that out there, that although,
I mean, I'm fine deferring that conversation until we do or don't have to make up for the reduction.
Sorry, I just see it, and I just, you know, I'm really worried about that. Even though we said, you know, we want some cuts from curriculum, that happened, and these 2 really, I don't know. It's all hard.
Yeah, and I think what I would like to do is, we still have about $30,000 to make up that we have to find, but what remains sort of in the other items for consideration, I would like to make sure that we have that detail to share with town council, so that they know, like, if you don't accept this COVID, like, here's going to be the impact. And so we have that information.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So Sarah, when you say we have $30,000 to make up, that's to fund that 4th K2 position?
Correct. So if we need that position based on enrollment numbers and class sizes and retaining class sizes, let me just go back down. So we have about $38,000 that we need to make up.
All right. So I would definitely hope that can be made up by the athletics administration.
Yeah,
restructure.
That's what I thought where we could get it from.
Okay. The other area is maybe the district-wide librarian and media specialist. I know that that's a combination of 3 roles. I think what we are saying here, and Sandy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is you keep the role, but you remove sort of I think Diane referred to them as like stipends that we would have for librarians to do some of that additional work. So that's potentially another area.
That's correct.
Okay.
Still need one.
Still need one position though, right?
Right. So this is just the reduction of the 44,000 that.
Right, so we had most recently said, I think, that the position would be 81,000, and the remainder of the funding for the that's currently in the budget was the 44, which was earmarked towards per diem work for the librarians, and so that was the piece that got put on the chart, maintaining the 81,000.
Yep. I understood that. Okay. So, I mean, I guess if we want to be super specific, essentially what we're asking is, can we make up $38,000 in the athletics department in order to fund the K2. Is that?
I think that I don't think that accurately states my position, Sarah. I've gotten so much feedback about that specific position. And I mean, I don't want to, I guess I don't really want to get into like sort of the devaluing what somebody does, because that's not what I hear. I hear concerns about discrepancies within the district. I mean, I don't want to go down that path, but that's not my position.
So let me restate that, because I think I oversimplified it. If we want to fund, if we feel like we need the K2, the fourth role, which we've all said we want to keep in, we need to make up $38,000. And based on what we've discussed, the area that we feel we can make that up the most is in the athletics department. Aside from that, we still feel like there's room to be, that the administrative costs in the athletics department are too high. So I think they both, it needs to happen, and hopefully one will cover the cost of the K2, but regardless of whether it does, it still needs to be looked at. And it's just our hope that that amount will allow us to put that K2 position back in and still meet the town council goal.
Right. So
does that detail a little bit more clear?
Yeah,
otherwise we need to go back through here.
I mean, it does, except that we've gone back and forth on this after having had this conversation before. So I feel like any lack of directness is going to result in a different outcome.
Yeah,
I mean,
I share that
Sandy
concern.
doesn't change. Go ahead, April.
No, I just said I share that concern. That's why I tried to put some parameters around the word significant savings, because that means something different to all of us. Like I hear you, Alicia. I don't want to be vague, and at the same time, I trust, well, I know that I don't have all the answers. I mean, I know that I don't know what all of the tasks are and how to distribute them and how to pay for it. But what I do know is that in this budget that I am being asked by the town council to reduce by $2 million, I cannot support a $90,000 administrative role in the athletic department. And that's what I hate to just boil it down to that, but that's where I'm at.
I just want to be clear, the directive that we just asked Sandy, I don't think changes. I was just trying to, there's nothing else that we've come up with that we feel comfortable putting back in order to make up for that K2 position. So I think we just see where that comes, what that comes to, and we may have to come back here and say, well, we need to take something else or take something else back out in order to hit the town council goal.
And I just want to be clear. I don't want to make any promises here, because you're paying somebody overtime because the job demands the person to work more hours. We can do the math and perhaps not pay the person overtime, but make it more of a full-time position or whatever it needs to be. And I just haven't done the math to know if you would have a savings. I know what you're trying to get to, but I don't want to make any promises here yet until we do the math.
There's really, I mean, there would be a $90,000 savings.
All right. Well, again, I appreciate what you're saying, and I'll look at that, and hopefully we'll come out with the same amount of money. But I don't want to make any promises without doing the calculations and working with Mike on that.
I guess I don't understand why we're all circling around the tree on this issue and not on other issues. These are all important jobs, and the teachers are important and provide one-on-one support to the students. And we didn't have this circling around the tree when it came to reductions or for teachers. And I can't quite figure out why we keep doing this. I don't understand it. I must be missing information.
I think the worry is, and I don't know if I'm really even answering the question, Alicia, but I think the worry is that there has always been a full-time administrative assistant in that department. And I think the worry is that we're talking about reducing those resources. And I'm not sure if I'm understanding it correctly again.
Well, it wasn't a question. It was a statement. And I guess I just don't understand why these conversations are more difficult for some positions than others, especially when the difficult conversations are not coming when we're talking about delivering services to students on a one-on-one basis. That's where I would expect the difficult conversations to be.
And also when we're laying people off.
But the original proposal was to lay a number of teachers off, and we didn't have this circling of debate, and I just don't understand why it's happening now. Another suggestion that I've had is that heard from people that know a lot more than I do is that maybe some of the 504 duties could be redistributed in the high school so that that would free up some time for the athletic director to sort of assume some of those responsibilities.
Just to support Alicia's comments again, like I feel the same way. I feel like we let high school teachers who were probationary teachers, we let those teachers know that their contracts would not be renewed. And I'm not okay with, I don't support that. I don't support letting those 4 high school teachers not be renewed and maintaining this position. Like that's, if we're going to talk one for one, and talk black and white, that it's that simple for me. And we've found a way to kind of claw our way back to restoring the positions that were lost. And I'm just not sure why this particular conversation and this particular position has warranted this level of conversation.
I mean, it wasn't this difficult to discuss getting rid of sports and co-curriculars as it is to get rid of a position that supports it. And that's counterintuitive to me.
I agree.
Well, I don't think any of us really want to do any of these reductions. And certainly close to my heart is holding on to teachers. They're in front of kiddos, and I think that's essential. And I'm not trying to in any way make this proposal that I'm suggesting the most important thing over all the other reductions. I'm not there. I just want to be mindful that we've had somebody in that position. I know the AD can't do all this stuff by himself, and I just want to make sure we have the supports. What those supports look like, they may look differently, and we'll go back to the drawing board and try to figure this out. But I think as we get down to these tiers, it becomes increasingly difficult. And again, I know you as a board and the administrators and the teachers and people in the school system, we're struggling with some of these reductions. And so they're hard conversations, and I think all we can do is go back and rethink and tell you what we come up with. And ultimately, you'll make the final decision.
It's
you,
definitely
Sandy. I
awful.
appreciate that.
It is. I do too, Sandy. Thank you.
Okay. So Sandy, you're clear then on what's being asked of you
Yes.
with regard to that position?
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. I think then, unless you guys have anything else specifically you want to, well, actually, let's go back up to, I think, the buses. Are you guys comfortable with putting the buses in the COVID fund for now?
They are. They're sort of
I am.
separately, but yeah.
I know, but just want to kind of take it out of
move
this
it. Yeah.
area. Put it in the other.
It is significant.
move it.
I mean, we're saying that fairly quickly, but it is, you know, that COVID fund is $430,000 and an additional, you know, $126,000. That's significant, and town council and, you know, the rest of the board may see that as a big jump in that number. But again, we have maintained our current bus routes with being unable to fill those positions. So we know that without any COVID restrictions, we can function with our current staff, but it's ultimately going to be those COVID restrictions that determine whether or not we need those positions. And that's exactly what that separate line, you know, separate fund or whatever it is that we're calling it was created. So it makes perfect sense to me that that's where that should go.
Okay. Cool. And then if you guys are okay, I see Todd's in, he has his hand up. I just would like a little bit more information as what the impact is of just deferring the fireproofing.
Yeah, I think that's a good
If you're
idea.
comfortable with that.
Sure.
Okay.
Now that we've gotten through everything,
Todd,
I think.
Yeah, and it would be nice to see Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah, Todd, you're required to go on video though, so you can see your face.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
The answer is, you know, we're required to get a certificate to fireproof these curtains every 5 years, and Kate was right with the 5-year timing. It's a little bit of an involved process because you have to pack them up and ship them off. That being said, I'm quite certain, and I don't mean to try to, you know, slip, you know, out from behind a responsibility, but I'm quite certain there are no stage curtain police entities coming out of Augusta to inspect whether they have actually been, you know, sprayed with or treated with the flame retardant material. But what does also happen to these curtains when they go out is they're cleaned. They collect a ton of dust. So again, could we put this off for 1 year and be out of compliance with the state fire marshal's office for 1 year? Sure. I think we could, and not get in any trouble with the stage curtain police, but because there really isn't an entity for that. But we do like when it comes to fire safety, and we work with our local authorities here in the town, we like to try and stay in compliance for all these types of things, because it only takes one, you know, unfortunate accident to make everybody think, oh my God, what have we done? You know, so we just have always adhered to the 5-year process because that's what we're asked to do. And just like we have our fire alarms tested and our smoke alarms tested and our sprinklers tested biannually, we do the stage curtains every 5 years. So I don't know if that helps you decide whether you want to defer this for a year or not, but I don't think anyone's going to come and write us a giant fine for not doing it, put it that way. But we definitely want to do it next year if we can.
It helps me. I don't want to be out. I mean, if that's the recommendation, I want to do it.
Right? It helps all of us in the other direction, Todd. I think all three of us are now like appalled, and under no circumstance are we not fireproofing the stage curtains. Like, I know the curtain police aren't going to come, but I don't want the fire marshal to think that we don't that we can't protect our kids. I mean,
well, I want to protect the kids is the first.
Exactly. Right. I mean, I do believe it. You know, safety should be our number one priority on this. And we did actually have a sort of not a fire, not an outright fire, but they had a few years ago, they had a play where they had an old antique car that they'd made out of wood, and there was this battery system wired up to some lights to make the lights light up on the car. And the guy who wired up the battery was some, parent who just did it wrong and ended up melting down the battery, and the, black smoke and the fire alarm and the whole thing. So, I mean, there are instances where there can be, minor emergencies that need to be addressed, and it would be a bad thing to have some unintentional accident happen and catch curtains on fire that hadn't been fireproofed. So I just think,
yeah,
I think it's a good idea to just stay in compliance on these things.
Could I just maybe suggest that while I do think it's important to stay in compliance, I don't know if there's like a certain time for this, because if we're not actually using the auditorium in the first half of the year, I'm wondering if it's something we can put off to maybe the second half of the year to see if we even actually need to do it, or if we could potentially defer it.
Actually,
keep it in the budget.
I talked with Kate about this. I don't know.
It does, because I'm saying keep it in. I'm just saying if we don't actually use the auditorium, we could pull that over potentially as fund balance for the next year.
Oh, sure.
Is my suggestion. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. If we could, if I have some savings in contracted services line items for this fiscal year, I might be able to get the company to do the work early, and it may not need to be budgeted into next year. We might be able to take care of it with this year's funds. So I just need to check with the company to see if they can make that happen this quickly and, work that out. So I was just connecting with my contact in the auditorium to see if they're willing to do that.
Yeah, that was actually something that Todd and I were talking about. If there was sufficient funds in FY20 to get this done and take it off the table as far as a budget item for next year, then that was something that we had thought about.
So what I'm going to do, based on what I think we're all saying, is I'll take it out of the reduction proposal. So we'll keep it in the budget. And then Todd, if you're able to get it done this year, then we'll go ahead and add that 7,100 back.
Yeah, you could remove it from next year if I can get it done early. So stay tuned. I've reached out and I'm waiting for a reply.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Great.
Todd. That was
Thank
helpful.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sarah, thank you for asking that question too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Louise, is there anything else that you wanted to go through?
Not anything else I want to go through on this sheet, but can we talk about tonight a little bit?
Yeah.
In terms of what's on the agenda?
Yeah, sure. Right before we do that, Alicia, was there anything else that you wanted to cover on the sheet?
No, I just want to say that, just because I'm advocating one thing over another doesn't mean that we have to make decisions, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm supporting these cuts. And I think that I need to say that over and over again, because otherwise it seems as though this is sort of the school's idea, our idea. This is the situation we're in, and we're going to try to put together the most responsible budget we can.
I agree, Alicia. It's an unfortunate circumstance that we are in, and none of us support. I mean, we struggled for the first 10 minutes of this meeting to find the right words for how to talk about these things, because none of us want to come across like we're happy or that we support any of this, because we built we were presented with a really great budget at our first reading, and we're pretty far from that now. Okay. The only other item, the other thing that I just wanted to say was it seems to continue to be repeated at town council meetings that we have like $700,000 still in CIP that we're not touching. And I just want to make it clear that we don't. And a lot of the items that remain in there are actually scheduled to be bonded, which, while we can have an argument on whether or not we actually need those projects or items, it doesn't help us towards our goal, our tax rate goal. So for the purposes of this exercise, Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sarah. For the purposes of the task that we were given, the bonded CIP projects don't reduce our tax ask, and that's the purpose of this exercise. So I'm fine with that.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, Kate, I will save this, update it, add some notes, and then not just Kate, I guess I'll send it out to all you guys. I'm not sure I'll have time to do that between now and our meeting tonight because I do have work meetings. But I guess April, to address your question, so we do have our second reading tonight. It's going to be my recommendation. I guess we can discuss whether or not you guys support this, is to actually table the second reading. I don't see a whole lot of value in going through an exercise of voting on a budget that we know is likely going to change. And I think we'll have a better idea of when that will, how that will change after the town council workshop on Tuesday.
I actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go, Alicia.
I'm actually okay with presenting the budget. I mean, I'm not convinced that we're going to, the benefit that I see to tabling it is to hope that that town council will agree on a fair budget that meets the needs of the school. And if we are all unanimous in our support of the budget, then I think that will present a strong message to the town. I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. And I truly believe that this is the school's bottom line. I think that the school has made many deep cuts to get to this place. And town council's still entertaining more. And that's something that I'm not going to be able to support, knowing the damage that's being done with this level of cuts. So for me to refine it to be consistent with additional cuts, it's not something that I'm ever going to support, because I think that this is as far as we can go.
Procedurally, I guess I think this is important, but while I agree with you, procedurally, we would still have to vote on, if they approve this at 0%, we still have to vote on that, because we have to approve what goes to the voters and what tax categories go to the voters, or sorry, budget categories. So I guess there's no way we're getting around, if they do go to 0, there's no way we're getting around not voting on that.
It's just whether we're going to advocate for what we need in advance, I think. And that's my preference. And because this isn't what we need. This is taking a lot of hits. I mean, this has been devastating to everybody for weeks. And from the top to the bottom to the school board, and to not pass it as is and say, this is the best we've got. I mean, it is the best that we've got. This is bad news all the way around. If we have to vote on something, I think that it needs to be a directive and not something that we say we can work on more. That's just the way I'm feeling.
What then would we vote on, though? I guess is the question, because we don't even have a final agreement on this number. Go ahead.
So what my take on it is this, which is, until about 20 minutes ago, I didn't feel like this was our budget yet. We really needed to do this work and have these communications so that we could make recommendations as a finance committee to the full board. I feel like we're in a position now where we could do that much more so than I did before this meeting started. And so I'm okay with tabling, but my reason for tabling would be to make sure that the staff has time, because now it's 3 hours before our first executive session. It would be to make sure that the staff has time to talk and be able to speak to this budget and answer questions, and also have a polished copy of it to give to the full board and say, this polished copy is our set of recommendations. And so we're not quite there yet. And so I would be okay with tabling until we got to that. But what we were given as a directive, and this is the way I view our second reading, is the only reason that we made these cuts was because town council directed us to. And so for me, there's no getting away from presenting a budget that represents those reductions. And so for me, the budget that we would approve at second reading would be the budget that matches the reductions that they asked us to make at first reading. And that's what this budget is. I don't know procedurally if we approve this budget and then town council turns around 2 weeks from now and offers further reductions, if we have to then vote on that, or whether that is something that, because we've already laid out what the next reductions would be, whether that's just something that would happen. I don't know whether we would have to vote again. I'm with Alicia. I don't know how any school board could vote to approve a less than level services budget.
Yeah, so, and I'll ask Kate to chime in, because the conversation that we had earlier was exactly that, is I don't want my yes vote on a 0% budget.
Never.
And her feedback was there's really no way around that, because we have to approve what goes to the voters. And Kate, maybe you can just elaborate on that.
Yeah, so what the board has to do when given a bottom line by the town council is to allocate the funds that have been given to us into the 11 voter categories that go to referendum. So there's a clear understanding that it's not necessarily your budget. There's actually 2 columns on the document that gets posted in the at the polls, and the first column is school board's recommended budget, and the second column is town council's approved budget. But there does need to be a procedural action on the part of the board to say, okay, so we've not been given the money that we expected. Where are the reductions going to come from? And I've had boards that have been, just take it out of regular instruction because it's your biggest category. I've had boards that have said, no, we actually have a plan and we want a piece to come from here and a piece to come from there. But there does have to be a vote. And, to me, it doesn't signify your approval. It signifies your allocation of what's been given to you.
So can we make that decision on allocation after? It feels better to me to make that decision on allocation if that decision comes to us than to approve anything other than what we have already built.
Yeah, so
I guess
the way that it would have happened if we were taking a vote tonight is that you would have been presenting your budget to the council, and then in 2 weeks from now or whenever they are doing it, they would have voted their vote. And then the night after that, you have another meeting, and that's when you say, oh shoot, we had our budget, it's all good to go, we're ready. But now we have to make some changes to reflect what the council has authorized us to spend. So the timetable's gotten a little squirrely, I think. It sounds like the council's going to push their vote out.
They did last night. They voted to move their second reading to the 24th.
Right. So what that would mean is that after the 24th, there's a chance that the board would need to come back together and reallocate funds according to what the council has authorized you to spend. That doesn't mean that you can't have the conversations ahead of time. I think you said, April, well, what if we said, here's our budget. We're voting on this in second reading. This is what we actually want our budget to look like. And then if the council says we are going to zero, then we will do, you know, X, Y, and Z. And here are the categories that those will come from. So you could do the pre-planning, but you have to take an action.
Yeah, maybe it's just, you know, a formal second reading is on this. And then whatever authorization we need to do, we can do that if we have to. But it's an authorization. That's not sort of an approval of the second reading budget, which I know is semantics, but it feels, none of it feels good, but it feels like something I'm a little bit more comfortable because I feel this way. I know the rest of the board feels this way. We do not want to support a 0% budget or get that message out in any way, shape, or form. And so by putting our stamp of approval on a second reading, we're saying this is as low as we're going to go. This is it. Yeah. And anything that comes after that, you know, if we have to authorize the spending, you know, procedurally, we do what we have to do, but it's not something we're supportive of.
So what were you guys thinking in terms of a timetable for doing that second reading if it's not for this evening? And I will say that I would appreciate it because I don't think I can invent all the budget documents that are supposed to be a good backup for this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to present. I mean, we have the final number, but we don't have what makes up that final number. So therefore, we don't actually know what that technically that final number is. So I'm not comfortable with the second reading tonight.
Yeah.
But I think we could do it. I think we could do it as early as, you know, if we want a special meeting, we could do it next week, or we could just do it at our next regularly scheduled board meeting.
I think it's okay to do it at the 18th, on the 18th. It's still before town council's meeting, now that they've pushed their second reading. It's after their workshop.
Right. You may have
Not that I think that their workshop should inform our decision, but
I would prefer to do it before their workshop.
But hold on a second.
Yeah,
if we're able to convince, like we're assuming that the workshop is going to bring us lower. Let's go in there and advocate for what needs to be higher.
Yeah.
And maybe it ends up being higher, and our second reading is actually higher than this. Like I'm not trying to be naive. I hear the comments. I know what they're saying. But I also think that we have a compelling story to tell.
I agree. And honestly, that is what we're asking. I mean, we're going to present what we have today to them at their workshop. And we are saying, well, we met your goal, but here are these additional funds that we want approved. And so it's actually, now that you say that, I'm kind of laughing because I actually don't think we were invited to a workshop. Well, I don't know what the heck they're having a workshop about if we're not invited.
Well, we're just going to send them a lot of emails, I guess. We're going to bomb Zoom it, or whatever it is. Okay. Cool. Well, I'm getting loopy. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to know if the finance committee needed to make a recommendation on second reading. I wanted to have that conversation as a committee before we went into tonight's meeting. So thank you.
No, great. Are you guys comfortable then with the recommendation to table?
Yes.
Yes, I would support that.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Kate, I see Sandy just disappeared, but Kate, do you have anything else? Final comments, questions?
No, thanks. I think if you want to share your spreadsheet with me, that's great. And I will start prepping things up based on what we've talked about today. So that, you know, there may be some blanks to fill, but it won't be like all the blanks, because I think you have consensus on pretty much all but a handful of things here.
Yeah. Awesome.
Do we have any public comment?
Oh my God. Thank you, April. Yes, if there's any public comments. We don't right now, but if anyone does want to make a comment, just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call upon you. looks like I have an email, so let me just. Actually don't see an email.
Is it
Am I
in your
missing it? Are you
spam
guys seeing it?
by any chance?
Oh, it could be. Yes. There is one comment. It is in my spam. Thanks, Alicia. The comment is from Jennifer Cleary, and it's, can you comment on the cost center difference between the athletic admins? They are different, correct? Kate,
Sorry.
I think they are different.
Can you repeat that question, Sarah? I didn't quite understand it.
Yeah. Yep. Can you comment on the cost center difference between the athletic admins? They are different, correct?
So there are two different account clusters. One is for the athletic director and the athletic trainer, and the other is for the two support staff people. But they're all in the same cost center. When we talk about cost center, we're talking about what's called extracurricular, other instruction. When the voters vote, it's all part of the same thing. There's not a separate administrative cost center. Does that sound like I'm hitting the right note there, or?
I think why don't we leave it there, and Ms. Cleary, if you have further follow-up questions, if you want to just email the board, we'll get you clarification on that.
Right, we can get more of a clear response on that.
Does she mean the actual cost difference between the part-time position and the full-time position?
Maybe, but it says cost center pretty explicitly.
I see.
I don't see any other public comment, so I think we can just close it there. Thanks, ladies. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.